Live.
Live.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Buchanan Board of Trustees Workshop Meeting, Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with Executive Order 202.1. And if you would like to call in with any questions or comments, please call 914-737-1034. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we've got a lot to discuss here this evening, but number one on our list is the discussion of the sewer fund. And I'm going to have Marcus lead us in that discussion. I do want to say the intention of doing this was never to raise money. It was more for equity and it was more for planning for the future. There's many other communities that do this. It's a fund. It's not a tax. So hopefully after Marcus goes through this, we'll all have a better understanding of this. Marcus, did you have some charts?
Yeah, so let me share my screen. There's just two little charts that I would like to share with everybody. Hold on one second. Let me bring it up. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
So the first one,
Marcus. No, that's a list of municipalities.
Yes. I just want to.
You want to start with that? Okay.
Yeah, I want to start with that. Just to show the number of municipalities.
Can you zoom in on that, Marcus? Zoom in a little.
Sure. Let me know what looks better. Is that better?
Good.
So this just listed the municipalities that I was able to get just to show you how many people have sewer funds. So you can see a list of people that have sewer funds. I didn't reach out to everybody just to get a list of people around this area. And then the list on the bottom where it says Suez legislation, a couple municipalities do not have their own water fund. Suez, which is a private company, bills water and they collect the water for these municipalities. So some of these municipalities, like the city of New Rochelle, and let me see, there was a couple other ones. Hold on a second. There was city of New Rochelle. There was a couple other ones on didn't show my entire list. Port Chester, a couple other municipalities, they had to get special state legislation to force Suez to release the data in order for them to build their sewer as well. So a lot of these municipalities are considering creating the sewer fund. Some municipalities have done it. Not on this list, I'm sorry. Village of Ardsley is a community that has implemented a sewer fund. The city of New Rochelle has created a sewer tax versus a sewer fund. City of Rye and other communities are also now considering a sewer fund as well. They had to go through a whole bunch of other hurdles to do that. So I just want to show you that, all the municipalities have it. Neighboring community, city of Peekskill, where I live, have a sewer fund, which I have to pay for. Village of Croton also has a sewer fund. So that's to show you.
How many of those municipalities operate their own sewage treatment plant?
I think we're probably one of the only ones that have a sewer treatment plant. Everybody else is paying this. Like, for example, I live in the city of Peekskill. I pay a county sewer tax as part of the county sewer district.
So each one of these municipalities gets billed from the county at a fixed rate per their usage of water. They don't have to go out and perform maintenance on their plants. They don't have to bond for repairs. They don't have to do any of that, correct?
Yeah, what happens is the county creates a sewer district tax, like the Peekskill Sewer District, to maintain their plant, and that share within the district. Within the municipality, that city of Peekskill, for example, or Village Croton, the local municipality charges a sewer fee based on the water uses to maintain the sewer laterals that connect to the county sewer main.
Yeah, so the county spreads out all the costs over all of the users who are tied in to the county, and they bill them based on the proportion of water that they all use. So it is basically a fixed rate, and the cost is spread out throughout the entire district. And each sewer district has more than 2 municipalities that are joined to it. There are a couple of municipalities in the county that operate their own plant. I was wondering how they pay for them.
Yeah, they are. If you can name any of those, because I couldn't find a municipality that I can't find that have their own sewer treatment plant. Like, for example, I know City of Newburgh, City of Newburgh has their own sewer treatment plant, and they base their they have a sewer fund as well, and they charge a sewer fee based on the water usage. But going back to the that City of Peekskill, Village of Croton, they don't charge a fee based on water usage. It's based on the overall tax. So you get your county tax bill for the City of Peekskill, where I live. Give you an example. When I get my city bill, I get my city taxes, I get my county taxes, and in there I also get a sewer tax that's on my city tax bill, and then a separate water bill I have, which is based for my water usage. And also there's a sewer fee on my water bill based on the maintenance of the sewer laterals that the city maintains. And then the county charges a tax that's on the county tax. So I just want to give an example of how that works there. And then to get the nitty gritty. Now, this is analysis, a simple analysis based on current taxes. And if we implemented a sewer fee, for example. So can everybody see both columns on the screen?
No, you haven't changed your page.
Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing and then bring up the other screen. Hold on a second. Okay, how about now?
Yep.
Can everybody see the numbers?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, good. So, for example, this column to the left is based on everybody's water usage, which also includes Continental and Entergy. If everybody paid water and also be part of the sewer fee, this is what the impact would be on the sewer fee as well as what the reduction would be in taxes. On the right-hand column, the situation is, as you guys know, which I realized after some time, Continental, it has their own sewer treatment, have a septic system, so they don't pay towards the sewer. They wouldn't pay towards the sewer fee because it's part of the overall taxes. So on the right-hand column is based on the users that actually produce water that goes into our sewer system. So as you can see on the right-hand side, the sewer fee on the yellow column in the middle, the sewer fee based on the current conditions, with Continental being part of their own their own septic system, and Entergy, who actually, as we all know, are also reducing and closing up. I took those two out of the analysis. The sewer fee will be about $469 for a year for an average user. On the bottom would be what the tax impacts would be. The taxes for the average taxpayer, again, will be reduced by $555. But the sewer bill will go up. A new sewer fee will go up to $469. Now, again, this is just like the other municipalities. Some people have implemented the sewer fund and not. The idea that I was trying to project to the village board is this is a tool to be used for the future. Let's say, for example, when a Holtec's property gets redeveloped, and we got more users there, Continental either gets connected to our sewer system or Continental gets redeveloped. It's an option you can use for the future. But even now, you can see there'll be almost like a break even, almost a small savings, not much of a savings for the average taxpayer, but it's an option that the village board can use in the future to make it more fair for the people who are using the sewer system, because by reducing your water usage, you can also then reduce your sewer fee as well. So again, I'm just trying to analyze the current conditions. If this happened right now, this is what the impacts would be.
Okay, so let's just go through a few things. So the total cost to run our sewer plant now is $900,000. So
correct.
In a different world with Continental and Entergy in this equation, the percent on the water bill would be 22.31%. So the estimated on an average home would have been $164.
Correct.
So what people need to understand, within our budget, that $900,000 would come out of our general budget. And similar to the water fund, it would be in a sewer fund. So it would be separated, it would be removed from the regular budget, and it would have a sewer fund line, we'd have a water line.
Correct.
And per person, it would roughly be $164. And if that was the case, the impact on the average resident, you have $555.
That's correct. Reduction in taxes.
So that would be the savings. So with water usage, and I know where you were going, Marcus, with water usage, it's something that can be controlled.
Correct.
So, and it would be equitable. So the other part of this is, say you have a homeowner and there's only 2 people in the house. So right now, that homeowner is also subsidizing someone who is using, somebody who has a household of maybe 10 people in it, maybe an apartment building, maybe a larger user. So I think the whole thought on this is to make the sewer fund, and that it would be more equitable, say that word 10 times fast, for those who are using it. If you use more, you pay more. If you use less, you pay less.
Correct. And the difference we have big, two substantial parcels that are not per se either paying a sewer fee right now, or sewer fee, or are going to be going away, like Indian Point will be closing down. So as those properties get redeveloped, there'll be more usage and there'll be more people that share in the cost of this at the same time. So that's why we haven't implemented it yet, because I'm thinking this is something that could be done in the future. It'll be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when those properties get developed. So that was the thinking of this. And if you look at the other municipalities, a lot of them don't have Indian Point like we have, but that's being closed down. So they'll have possibility better use in the future. So that's the reason why the idea of creating a sewer fund was.
And I know when you set this up, Marcus, you did not understand that Continental was not part of our sewer system. And that's what the holdup has been.
That's correct. Because at that point, they're a substantial user of water.
Yeah, they're now our bigger water user.
That's correct.
But so, yeah, you didn't understand that. And that's why, I've had discussions with Continental. Yes, they would be interested in being part of our sewer system, but that's not going to be tomorrow. Unfortunately, it's not going to be tomorrow. So that's why this went the way it did.
One question, Marcus, can I have a question? If a sewer fund, then that means that the monies in the sewer fund can only be used for the sewers. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good point. According to state law, for example, like we transfer money from the water fund to the general fund if you want to, as part of the overall taxes. When it create a sewer fund, you cannot take any money of a sewer fund. That's state law. The sewer money can only stay in the sewer for sewer purposes. So that's a good point to make. That's correct.
Thank you.
So Continental is the biggest user of water. That's correct, but they only have a couple of hundred employees, so they wouldn't be per se dumping as much sewage into our sewage treatment plant as a residential unit per resident. So that would be a way to increase your revenue, because you're not going to be processing as much water as they're using. And we do have that legislation on the books. It just hasn't been enacted. I never felt that you should have legislation that you don't enact upon, that you just ignore. So that's why I wanted to either implement this, because nothing has changed from 2019 and 2018 when this was first debated. Nothing has changed. I don't believe that you would have been able to get Entergy to pay, because we already were on a separate agreement with Entergy to process their waste and to bill them. So you can't bill somebody twice for the same service. So, Continental was never on our plan. They were always in a septic system, and the majority of their water is used as a process fluid that is not discharged back to our plant. So there again, my whole issue is that legislation was passed that has not been enacted, that has been sitting on the books, and at some time we could charge the residents without them really knowing about it. So we should either implement this plan as you have listed it as you have explained it, or we should remove the legislation from the book so that we're not ignoring it.
First of all, we wouldn't be charging the residents without them knowing it, and they certainly would know when they got a bill.
Oh yeah, they would know when they got the bill, sure.
What I'm offended by is that it was alluded to that it was an extra tax to raise money, when in fact that is not the case. And because Marcus was not aware that Continental was not in part of the equation, that messed up this formula. But not only that, Entergy would not be included either, because not only did we have the sewer money from them, but I also had managed to negotiate with them to get an extra infrastructure agreement with them. So we wouldn't be looking to hit them again after, the $250,000 that we had gotten for the infrastructure. So that's what, Marcus didn't have all the answers to this. I would recommend in the future, for fairness for the residents, for money that's available for whatever processes or upgrades or any repairs that need to be done for the sewer plant. I think this is something planning for the future. I think this is something that needs to be implemented down the road. So this is where we are now. We need to start thinking out of the box. We need to start planning for the future. So this was one of the things. Unfortunately, because of Continental and Entergy right now, we're not in a position to implement this. But I just want to have the explanation and people understanding what it was. And it wasn't this horrible law that went on the books. It was just a misunderstanding from Marcus, who figured these numbers out. He just assumed that Continental, and now, of course, we have Entergy closed, so they're not going to be using the water that they used to use.
Well, there again, it was my contention during the public hearings, and I had stated at the 2 public hearings that I had attended, that you would never have been able to get money from Entergy. And I actually I testified to the fact that the 1987 agreement, I believe it was, excluded from billing them twice for the same service. So, that's always been my position. And since nothing has changed since the legislation was passed, what do you feel will change in the future to actually put a dollar value to this legislation?
I think once more properties on the Indian Point site get developed, I think if Continental becomes part of our sewer system, I'm not sure what their discharge is from their process. I'm not aware of what that is, but so I think it was a good law, but unfortunately it couldn't be implemented.
So that it's the intention of the board to leave the law on the books and basically ignore it?
That's a board decision then. Obviously, okay. It's not ready to go this year. It's probably not ready to go next year. But in the future, obviously, this is something that will have to be looked at. But, I also have to go back to you with the sewer plant, because I know you had talked many times about making it a transfer station. So just know this also, if somehow some board down the road says, nope, we don't want the sewer treatment plant, we don't feel it's an asset to the community, which I think would be a fatal mistake for the development of the village. But remember this, we're not going to be able to be put into that. We're not, our sewage is not going to go into that plant for free. You will have a sewer fund tax or sewer fund fee from Westchester County. That will happen. So
and Marcus touted the benefits of that by stating that every municipality within Westchester County currently enjoys the benefit of having their sewage taken from them and being able to spread out the costs throughout the entire district. Sometimes being an outlier is not always the best thing, especially when you have to spread millions of dollars of cost over a couple of thousand residents.
But this is only 10% of our budget. So here's my concern, Sean, because this is my biggest concern. And I just hope people will be open-minded and understand this. As we're developing property here in the village, we have a potential of let's say 200 acres. Okay. We have a potential of 200 acres to develop. That would be going, if the transfer station, if that was decided to get rid of our sewer treatment plant, that would be going through the city of Peekskill, and it would go into the county place in Peekskill. Here's the problem. Peekskill is developing and building, and they said maybe 3,000 to 5,000 more residents there. So the problem is you don't want to get into a situation as you're developing the properties and you're in a position where the county goes, hey, sorry, I'm sorry. I know you have another 100 acres to develop, but we can't take any more of your wastewater. That would be a huge, huge problem for the village because it is so important for us to develop that property over there. And if we're held back or held captive by our sewer system, that's going to be a sad day for the village. So I think if we can get that rehabbed, we can develop it the way it should be, get it up to the DEC standards, and we can do it through grants and other monies. I honestly think that's the best way to go for the village for the future.
And when you said 10% of the budget, didn't Marcus just add up $900,000? Our budget isn't $9 million. Right? If you had 900,000 up there, that would make it, can you run those numbers again, Marcus? That's closer to 20%.
Yeah, the general fund budget is a little bit over 7 million.
Yeah.
The water fund and the general fund together is like 11 million. So it depends on what percentage you want to use. Overall budget between water and sewer, water and the general fund or just the general fund. So the general fund is a little bit over 7 million. And
it's approximately 50% of the appropriations though. Correct? If we appropriate $2.2 million and we have $900,000, it's around 40%, 45% of our appropriations directly from the taxpayer outside of the pilots and all other contributions. Correct, Marcus?
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. And just to make a little point, just to let you know, as the city of Peekskill resident, I pay the county, I pay the sewer bill and my water bill. Just to let you know, my last year tax on my county sewer tax was $510. So I think at the end of the day, the taxpayer still has to pay for it. Might come down our budget, but then we're going to wind up paying the county sewer tax almost probably equal to what you would pay anyway. So I just want to throw that out there because I have no control with the county sewer tax when that comes out on the bill.
And all of these figures and facts and figures you come up with do not include any potential bonds that we have to spend or any of the capital plans that was discussed a couple of months ago that could cost up to $4 or $5 million, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay. We are looking at grants, and we are also, there is another potential funding opportunity that, when the time comes, I'll present all that.
Oh, I appreciate that. And there's always hope for having grants, and there's always things that are available. But if I remember correctly, over the past 20 years, I don't think we received one grant to rehab the sewer plant. That might, it could, did we receive a grant to do work on the sewer plant? Mayor,
no, never. We have never. We have gotten, since I've been mayor, many, many, many grants.
Sure.
Many different things. We've been aggressive with going after grants. Not for the sewer plant. No, we have not done that. But as you know, we did hire somebody to look at that. You do know that the DEC wants us to upgrade it. So we're in a position, we're in a better position now to be able to get grants because everybody's looking for money.
Sure.
For repair.
Can I have a couple of words?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. So first of all, we're talking about whether or not to enact the law that we passed. And if you're going to get into all the merits of the sewer plant, we're going into a much broader discussion.
Sorry. Yes.
This is we're not. So while that is a discussion worth having at some point, I always want to look at the numbers, but as I currently feel now, I think it's an asset to the village to keep the sewer plant. I'm hopeful we can get funding and use it to our advantage. It certainly has an appeal to people that want to develop in the village when they know they have sewers they could tie into, as opposed to developing further down 9A where they're going to have to go with septic at this point. So it is an asset to the village, in my opinion, but that's a separate conversation. Regarding the sewer fund, I want to just say a couple of things. When you get an electricity bill, it's based on how much electricity you use. When you get a water bill, it's based on how much water you use. If we were just to stop billing people for water and disperse it equally amongst all the homes in the village to pay for the water, it would be the same inequity that we're talking about here with the sewer fund, because you could have a 3-bedroom house with 1 senior citizen living in there. You could have a 3-bedroom house with 6 people living in there who are going to obviously use a lot more water. And right now, under the current taxation system, they're both paying, if they have roughly equal homes, they're both paying the same amount. That's not fair. I strongly support user-based billing. And by taking the sewer fees percentage out of the tax bill, you would be lowering each person's tax bill. And by putting it into a user base, because the amount of water people use is generally proportionate to how much sewage they're going to generate. By making it user-based, I think it's a much more fair system. Right now, it's people that, and not only large households, but anybody that has illegal units in their building is using more water, and they're getting a free ride on that sewer bill at the expense of people with small households that are not using a lot. So there is definitely an advantage. It's not a new tax. It's changing the way we charge the tax. And some people are going to kind of break even. Some people that use more are going to pay more. People that use less are going to pay less. And I think it is the way to go. I like it a lot. However, as Marcus now runs the numbers, the fact that Continental, it's not even Continental. Who is it now?
It's another name.
The sheetrock plant.
I can't
keep up with all the sheetrock plant.
Sheetrock, they changed the game just recently, yes.
Oh, did
Yeah.
it?
So the sheetrock corporation there will be getting relief on their tax bill, and they already pay too little as far as I'm concerned. And that what they're saving would be spread out amongst the rest of the residents. There's probably some people that use less that would still save despite that, but in general, it would be added on to people's bills, and that's a little disturbing. So I would propose. I mean, I don't know if there's any harm in having it on the books if we don't enact it. I kind of understand Sean's opinion. Why the hell have a law on the books if you're not going to enforce it? That's the way I feel about a lot of our code, property maintenance, and all these things. If we don't enforce it, then what's the point? But I would hope that we can change to this type of billing system when it works out optimally for the average resident.
So why don't we just put this on the agenda for the July meeting, and we'll vote on it.
Vote on whether to repeal the law?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, either repeal it or put a dollar value to it. Just don't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
If you set the standard of passing legislation and decide to ignore it, why should anybody listen to any other legislation? Well, I know Nick and Rich and you, Teresa, were in favor of that legislation. Cool. You were the 3 that voted for it. The other 2 trustees were absent that day. And I understand your rationale, and that's fine. I just don't like setting the example that if it's okay for village officials to ignore legislation, why can't the average resident ignore it?
Yeah, well,
so we use it or lose it.
That's a distorted statement, Sean.
It's true, Nick. It's there.
No, it's a different thing. We enacted that in the best interest of the residents, okay. But then there were some numbers that were run afterwards that weakened the effectiveness of it.
Okay, so then you repeal it because it didn't meet its original intent.
The village not enforcing a property maintenance code doesn't mean that everybody in the village should just ignore property maintenance codes and let their places go to pot. So, it sounds good. It's rhetoric, but it's not a very well thought out statement there, Sean.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, I would like the law, but it may not be the best time to enact it. Whether we repeal it or have maybe there's some way we could just put it on hold so we don't have to go through the process again in the future if we want to enact it. If that was the case, if we could do that, I'd like to do that. But as much as I support user-based billing, it's something that we need to wait until there's a little bit more opportune time to enact.
Well, Nick, I really don't think that the sheetrock manufacturer is going to come on our request to come on our system anytime in the future. They're at maximum capacity. They've been operating for over half a century on the system they're working on. If you're worried about developing the 250 acres at Indian Point, you're talking 10, 15 years down the road before they might even release the site. So you're talking maybe a quarter of a century before you can put a dollar value to something that you enacted 2 years ago. You know?
Yeah.
And it's probably won't even pertain.
Because it may not be a good time because of that. It may not be a good time to enact this, but it's unfortunate because there's an inequity in the billing. People with comparable homes with 1 resident versus 4 residents, 3 residents versus 8 residents, whatever it is, are paying the same as the larger family, despite the amount of usage. So I wish there was another way we could remedy that inequity, but I don't know. Maybe somebody has a suggestion on how we could remedy that inequity and not get into the bind that we're in with this.
The remedy is putting a dollar value on it and enacting it and having it work the way you just stated. It'll be based on user-based. All you have to do is enact the law and it satisfies your issue, Nick. That's all. That's the way you fix it.
Yeah. So I'd be curious to get a number on if the sheetrock plant comes off of if this comes off of their tax bill, then how much money is that's going to get distributed to the average household? Is it going to be a couple of bucks? Is it going to be a couple of $100?
Just to let everybody know, on this spreadsheet, I can go back to it too, that the average tax will go down about 28%. That's across the board to everybody. Then what's going to happen is then the sewer fee, that's why the sewer fee goes up. The taxes go down for everybody equally, 28%. On the sewer bill, now the sewer bill right now is being somewhat subsidized by Continental, because it's part of the general tax.
So what I'm asking
that's why the sewer fee goes up on my spreadsheet.
You understand what I'm asking is if you took that 28% off of Continental or whoever the sheetrock owner's plant is, if you take the 28% off of that tax bill and distributed that equally to all the other sewer rate payers that would have to pick up that amount.
Okay, that's what.
How much would that be for the average house? Because if a person is saving, is right now paying twice as much for the sewers as they should be, and they're going to get $5 tacked on to compensate for the sheetrock plant, they're still saving a lot of money. So,
let me bring it up.
Do you understand the number I'm asking for?
Yeah. So
maybe we can get that at the next meeting.
So I'm going to try to give you the answer today. So the taxes, which is the bottom half of my spreadsheet, everybody's taxes average go down by 28%. Because we're removing $900,000 out of the general fund budget. So everybody's taxes are reduced by 28%. Now on the sewer bill, on the left-hand column, your sewer bill will be $164 with Continental on the bill, which they're not. The right-hand side, that's where the increase comes in. Your sewer bill will be $469 because Continental's usage is not incorporated in that calculation. So the taxes are equal across the board. So going back to Continental, their benefit to them is their taxes go down 28%, but they don't pay anything towards the sewer fee because they're on sector.
So they're going to get a tax reduction of about $40,000.
Correct.
That $40,000 has to be distributed amongst the other ratepayers,
and that's made up on the sewer fee. That's why the sewer fee is higher.
How many other ratepayers are there?
About 8 something.
800 and some parcels.
Well, let's just say, for the sake of math, that there's 1,000 when you count houses and businesses. I know it's not an accurate number, but just to make the math easy, if there were 1,000 and we're talking about 40,000, that means that the average person would have to pick up $40 of that tab. Do you see what I'm heading at?
Absolutely.
The $40,000 that's coming off of Continental will get distributed to roughly 1,000 properties, which makes it about $40 per property. Do you see where I'm going?
You're talking about taxes. Is that what you're trying to refer to?
As an average, Continental's going to taxes is going to go down 40,000. That 40,000 has to be made up roughly by 1,000 other sewer ratepayers, which means they're each going to have $40 times 1,000 is 40,000. So on the average, people are going to have to pick up $40 of that tab to compensate for the loss of tax revenue from Continental.
On the sewer.
Then but because it's going to be user based, for some people they may only pick up $10 of that tab or 20.
Oh, it's based on the sewer fee.
Maybe 80.
Because it's based on the sewer fee, not on taxes.
It's easy math. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but if you all see, do you all see where I'm heading, or am I just blabbering on?
Nick, listen, I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying. 43% of our properties are commercial. Right now, those properties do not contribute to the aggregation of the sewer plant the way a residence does. And we're able to pass those costs along to those 43% of the people. When you do this, enact this bill, the way it is modeled, it's modeled for the usage, okay? Con Edison doesn't use as much water as they pay in proportion to their taxes. The other commercial entities who pay taxes at basically a higher rate than our residents also contribute to the repairs of the sewer plant, and they do not contribute to the sewage as much as the residents. That's why I'm saying, and I appreciate somebody finally agreeing. Well, I don't want to say agreeing with me, but that was my whole issue the whole time, because we're taking the tax money from commercial entities and using it to pay for our sewer plant. When you remove that revenue from our tax base, you are now placing the entire cost of the sewer plant on the water users based on their rate.
Right. Well, that's what I'm trying to...
Because everybody's taxes will be reduced.
But Sean, those commercial places use more water. This is all about user base. And let's keep Entergy out of it, because they're in a whole different situation. They're not going to use anywhere near the water.
Is there anybody else who's on their own septic and not using our sewer system?
I think there's one or two other properties.
Sean made a good point. The Con Edison undeveloped properties are not. So whatever taxes they're paying do not include, they would not be billed for sewers.
And our commercial...
They're probably not a lot because it's undeveloped property, the taxes. But what about WIC? WIC is on our sewer system, correct?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
And all of the small businesses along 9A or Blakely or wherever are on the sewer system.
I'll bet you Buchanan Hardware pays more in taxes than I do, and they have 6 or 7 employees. So, they're paying a lot more that contribute to the maintenance of the sewer plant than what the residents do. And when you shift that burden to the water users and reduce the tax levy on all of the businesses and all of the properties within the village, this law backfires. It goes backwards. And this is what I've been trying to explain. I'm glad, Nick, you're finally coming on board with the reduction of our general fund.
But the reduction...
that's what I'm trying to get an idea of what that number actually is. Now, WIC, for example, is probably using more. There's so many businesses in there that rely on water and a lot of people that work in there, they would probably wind up, if we were switched to this user-based system, they'd probably wind up paying more than they're currently paying in taxes. It could work both ways, Sean.
Okay, that's fine. And I think we've used up too much time already.
I think so. All right.
I do appreciate the lively discussion.
I think that it's this could be debated until we turn blue, but I think that it's a problem to enact it right now. And for me, the question is, can we set it aside, or do we have to remove it from the books?
We'll probably have to remove it, but that will be discussed at the meeting. Most likely you have to remove it. Marcus, what are your thoughts?
All I want to say is I'll give you a list of all the other municipalities. A lot of them have passed the law, and a lot of them have not implemented it yet, but they're waiting for the right time. So we're in a group with at least 8 or 10 other municipalities doing the same thing. But it's a board decision, whatever you guys want to do. And then if it changes in the future, you can always The new board can enact it. It's up to you. I was just trying to be proactive and plan for the future with future development.
Marcus,
that's all.
I do appreciate that, because since you've been with us, you do think out of the box. You look at ways, that the village can come up to the 21st century with different things. And, we haven't had that in many years. So it's like a breath of fresh air, because you look at things differently and present it to the board. And, under the circumstances when you first showed us this, we thought that was the right way to go for the residents. We thought it was equitable for everyone. So, but with further information, we will vote on this at the July meeting. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, Marcus. Also, I want you to talk about the update on Lents Cove, the municipal boundaries. After the meeting, I had asked Marcus to get several other prices, but Marcus have some more information for us now.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. We were able to dig through some of the files, and I reached out to George Palmer too. We were able to find an old survey of Lents Cove property, the village property. That's the entire property. Originally, the original proposal did not include, we thought it had to research everything from the beginning, from the ground up with no documents. So we were able to find a survey, an old survey, and we were able to find an old title, a deed, which I then presented to Matt Noviello, who was the one who gave us a proposal. And I also got another title company from the engineering company, our engineering company, and I sent the same information to another company to get a proposal, 2 other companies. Those 2 other companies did not respond to me since the last meeting, but Matt Noviello, who gave us the original proposal, said with this documentation, it helps him substantially. So he provided a new proposal for $2,800. And what that work would entail was to detail the location of the area, not the entire Lents Cove, but the area that's in question within Lents Cove that supposedly is within the city of Peekskill. So that way we can determine where those boundaries are. And then we know where it is. And then we can always then talk to the city about trying to convert that property back to the village control and out of the city's hands. So at this point, I got one proposal. I tried to reach out to a couple other people. I haven't received anything back. There's no rush to do this. If anybody has any other companies, I'm more than willing to reach out to somebody else. I'll provide them with the same information. And so it's up to the board to determine, do you want to move forward with this? Do you want to wait for more proposals, or do you want to move on this and try to at least clear the record on this property? I would like to go back with the city, with the board's permission, and the board to go back to the city of Peekskill and say, this is the area that supposedly is within the city of Peekskill. We've always thought that it was within the village boundaries. I think we all believe that the city doesn't lose any taxes because all we're paying is county tax. There is no disadvantage for the city to give up rights to this and have the village take over the property again to where we should be. So that's my 2 cents, whatever you want to do.
Marcus, you said that you found an old deed. Did the deed show that to be our property?
We own the property, but it's within the city of Peekskill.
Oh, okay. And the deed shows it as part of Peekskill?
Correct, but it doesn't identify the meets and bounds of the property that's within the city of Peekskill. Gotcha. And that's what we need to do. If the city does agree to allow us to annex that property, we need the meets and bounds to put that on the record.
Yeah, we want half of Lents Cove too.
So Marcus, set up a meeting with us, with the mayor and their.
But do you want to have a meeting before we get do you want to move forward with the meets and bounds, or you just want to have a discussion with them first?
What we're talking about when we go in, we better have all our I's dotted, T's crossed. I'm not seeing much hope in that, but we can ask.
So, do you want
there's 2 other people out there that are supposed to be giving us.
It's been 2.5 weeks and I have not received a response from 2 other companies.
Go ahead with it, Marcus.
Okay.
It's $2,800.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Didn't we already vote on this? And didn't we already authorize the expenditure of $7,000 for the same purpose?
We did, and now it's now $2,800. So would we need to re-vote on it for the $2,800, or can we go under the $7,000?
Oh, we need the 2,800. I just want to bring you guys up to date because the original was 7,000 showing, and then
the resolution read not to exceed $7,000.
Correct, and I got a price for 20. I want to make sure put on the record. Everybody knows that because I did receive some residents saying, how come you didn't get out of prices? So I want to show to our residents.
Listen, I understand that, but we had a resolution.
Yeah.
It was voted on, it was passed. And is this another piece of legislation that there was questions afterwards that now it's going to be?
I think the bill is coming in. The bill's coming in lower. And everybody was in favor of 7. Nobody's going to say I'm not in favor of 2,800.
No, but Nick, the issue I have with this is that we passed the resolution. It wasn't implemented, and now it's going to be rehashed and go out for rebid again. We've already discussed it. We already authorized the expenditure, and now it's coming back again. Another piece of legislation that's being.
What's happening is we're doing too much. We're doing too much of this.
Funds. Yeah, that's good too.
Absolutely.
It's approval of spending funds. So if the board feels comfortable with the $2,800, what I would feel comfortable with is since Marcus said this is not an emergency, I'd like to get this done. Don't get me wrong. But, by the time of the next meeting, maybe we'll get another answer from someone with a price. So at least we have that option.
So then we're going to repeal the previous resolution.
I don't know, Stephanie, do we have to repeal the resolution if the resolution said up to the expenditure up to 7,000?
No, because it covers this.
As long as we go with the same vendor.
Correct.
So Marcus has reached out to other vendors for other quotes. So the purpose of that is to get quotes at a lesser price. If the quotes come in as a lesser price, then we have to repeal the original resolution and start all over again. My whole issue with this is that we've already approved the contract, we've approved the expenditure, and now it's not being enacted if somebody else comes in.
It's an expenditure. It's not a law. It's an expenditure. So
a resolution is a law, basically.
We approved it.
Well, it seems to me like we could just move ahead, and that's what everybody wants to do.
Is everybody willing to spend the $2,800 without getting 2 other prices? That's the question here, because if so, we'll vote on. Well, it's voted on, and we can move on.
Yes, move on.
You don't have to vote.
You don't have to vote. Just say we're ready to go.
It's covered.
$2,800.
Perfect.
Next agenda item.
Good.
Thank you. Discussion of a refund of $200 for the 14 and under youth baseball league for fees paid for canceled use. I think this is a no-brainer. I think, the board would approve refunding them the $200 for
Does anybody need an explanation on what, just to give to public, the youth baseball paid in advance because everybody knows all the rain. They had to cancel some games. They couldn't reuse the field. So they want a refund of $200 for the fees they paid. I think it's reasonable, but it's a release of funds. It's a little amount. I want to make sure the board is okay with it so we can release the funds.
Small amount and reasonable. Move on.
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so the Firehouse, are they on with us? Andy, Chief Andy is with us. So the discussion of the extension of the Firehouse.
Is that what I'm sorry, Teresa, that's the extension of the fire agreement or the firehouse?
No.
Firehouse.
Physical structure.
Oh, physical structure. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, is there anyone else that's going to speak for the Firehouse that's on now?
Andy's coming on.
Okay.
Andy, can you hear us?
I can.
Perfect. Do you want to turn on your video or you just want to speak?
I thought I did, but we'll try it again.
There we go.
There you are.
Go ahead, Andy.
So who would like to, are you going to be giving us a review of what the Firehouse is looking to do?
No, that would be a trustee thing, not the fire chief.
Okay. Are there any trustees on, other than Bob is a trustee, but I don't know. He's wearing 2 hats here tonight, so I'm not sure.
I mean,
I really don't have anything to say about it right now. So
Teresa, I don't know. We do have to discuss the extension of the agreement for 2 months. Maybe you could address that instead.
Okay.
That expires on May 30th. It expires on May 31st.
Okay. So the agreement is being worked out. So I think we're going to need another month or 2 months to finalize the agreement. Would the board be okay with that, to extend their contract for 2 more months while we're?
Yeah, I think there were just a couple of minor issues, wording questions that we wanted to review.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's being done by other entities, or does the board need to do that?
A copy of that has been submitted. I given to Stephanie, and I have it. I can get a copy over to the rest of the board. Like you said, they're minor issues, and Stephanie's reviewing it. We'll try to have a meeting with the fire trustees to try to finalize and come back with a board. And then Stephanie can come back to the board with recommendations.
I have no problem extending the current agreement for a month or two to get that procedure done.
Nick, you seem to know about the extension of the firehouse. Do you know anything about it? Did they contact you?
Just if
you fill us in a little bit, maybe.
As far as the physical structure, this is a challenge that's come up repeatedly over the years. And last time, recently, the firehouse trustees, started discussing it again. And I was over there and looked at it with them about a month ago. They would like to add a third bay, and they would like to do that at the north side of the building where the driveway currently is. If you go around the back of the building and you go in on the right and you come back out on the left, there's about a 24-foot flat area there. They would like to add on. I think it measures out to where they could add on the width of the building enough to create a third bay for a fire truck and leave just enough room for a car to come out around the back. That's the way it looks, but it's all kind of complicated. There's engineering and architectural design work to be done. And, we could, there's the question of how does it get paid for? There's the question of, is it needed? There's a question of, is that the best way to do it? There's a lot of questions. It's not an easy thing, but I don't know. Do you guys, Andy or Bob, do you want to explain why the fire department feels they need that?
All right.
I don't think they're acting in the capacity of a trustee right now.
I was going to say, I really can't.
So that would be a separate meeting to have. Maybe we need I think in order to discuss it, we might need to have the board members get a site plan or a sketch so they could understand this, because without that, I don't think people have a good concept of what we're talking about. Or else, when they have the time, any trustees that want to could meet up with Andy, the trustees, Bob Outhouse, or any of the other. Oh, he's not a trustee anymore. Well, whoever they have to meet with, Andy, who would they have to meet with if they wanted to come and look at it and get an explanation?
You can give us a call, but we can have the trustees there.
So if anybody wanted to go and have them show you what it is they'd like to do and talk to you about it.
I know that they're working on the site plans and stuff now. They're working on getting a set of drawings done.
Oh, they are?
I don't know the whole logistics of everything.
And who's doing the drawings? Did they bring an engineer or an architect on board?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I think the real issue, Nick, would be, can a village expend public funds for a corporation?
No,
that's not a public fire department. That's a corporation.
Wait, can I just clarify whose property would this be on?
The fire
Buchanan engine companies.
And they're asking for the village to contribute funds?
No, I don't think they're asking for any monies. I think they wanted us to be aware, and what my understanding was, they were asking, as they're doing this, if the fees, the application fee could be waived for them.
Oh.
That's getting a little far ahead, but no, you cannot use taxpayer dollars for a separate entity. It does not belong to the Village of Buchanan.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm sorry, that was on discussion of extension of Firehouse, and I thought we were ready to discuss that, but we're not. So that's for another day.
Andy, when they have those sketches, when they have something that's presentable, maybe we could have them come do a presentation at a workshop.
Yeah, I'll pass it on to the trustees. I'm sure the trustees will be in touch with you.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
The next is discussion of fireman exemption. Firemen, firewomen, fire people. I don't know what the correct words are anymore.
Firefighters.
Everything's changed.
Just to let you know, I was approached by the volunteer fire personnel about a possible exemption. Municipalities do have exemptions for active volunteer firefighters. Stephanie and the towns have a 10% reduction of the assessed value. Villages is a straight $500 off the assessment of the taxable value. So it's $500, not in dollars, off the assessment. A lot of municipalities have that to try to encourage people to volunteer. You have to be an active firefighter for 5 years or more. And then I believe, and Stephanie could correct me, after 20 years, it becomes permanent on the status, and also for the wife or the spouse remaining in the house, as long as the owner occupied, that $500 remains off. So is that something
I'm not understanding. What's the exemption? Discussion on firemen exemption. Exemption from what?
Exemption from taxes.
Property taxes.
Property taxes. So the question, if the board would like to consider that, I think you believe you have to do a local law and then go through that process. Again, it was brought up by the Volunteer Fire Department. A lot of municipalities have it. It's up for discussion purposes and see how the board would like to proceed.
Is this tied to the LoSAP, or is it just any active fireman?
Yeah, the $500 exemption, Sean, has existed for many, many years before LoSAP even existed. That was the first option that was given to volunteers to volunteer, to try to encourage people to volunteer. Like I said, it's $500 off the assessed value, not $500. So people always get that confused.
No, the town of Cortland has that currently for all for volunteers, and that's that same criteria. I just didn't know if it was going to be on a yearly basis based on if you made your LoSAP points or not.
As long as you're an active firefighter, then that would stay on. Now, after, like I said, after 20 years, it becomes permanent. So after 20 years, they can stop serving, and that status remains on the property.
Do you have any idea what the average dollar-wise that would look like?
I can give you that for the next meeting. I can email you. I can email the board members. I will have to find out for the fire department how many active volunteers that would be, and I can give you an actual dollar amount what the reduction for everybody would be.
Well, you're at what, $325 per assessed thousand? Is that what it is? So it's $120 basically for each person. Every active fireman in the village of Buchanan.
That's correct.
So if there's 50 people who live in the village, right? You're talking $5,000, a 0.25%. Rough numbers.
I can give you more detailed numbers if I can get the actual actor. I can get that to you if the board would like to consider it. That's all.
Okay, perfect.
So it's your decision how you want to proceed. I can get you an email on that. You can get further discussion if you like.
Okay. It's not a substantial amount of money.
I think
do you want me to draft something to give it to you, or do you want to wait and hold off and let me know how you want to proceed?
Well, let's get the dollar value from Marcus, and then you could craft your legislation similar to the town of Cortland.
Yep. And Sean, that was a good question about tied to LoSAP because of the 5-year thing. But Marcus, they do have to certify. They have to get a certification every year that they're active.
That's correct. I have to get that from the fire department. So, Andy, or can you get me a list of how many active firefighters there are? That would be helpful. Thank you.
And every year, they have to fill out the exemption paperwork to verify that they're still within the community. That's what the town of Cortland does. They send out a form every year before the tax time.
That's correct.
It's not only the fire department would send it to the village, it's the individual sending it to the taxing authority.
Correct.
And if they don't fill it out for the year, they don't get it.
They lose it. Absolutely. And the volunteer fire department has to certify they're still active firefighters as well.
Okay. So it's another process. We're going to have to put someone in charge. Marcus, you're elected.
That's it. No problem. I'll be working with Cindy like always.
Okay, the next two, we're in a public hearing, amending Chapter 195, the water to the code of the village of Buchanan. We'll be voting on that hopefully at the July meeting. I don't know if anybody has any other input into that. And the public hearing on local law amending Chapter 149, the recreational facilities, and that's the smoking on properties. The only thing I wanted to mention about that, I understand that in the state and the county, they do not allow smoking in their parks. I think Stephanie's question was about parking lots, if parking lots should be included.
Well, my question was the way we define recreational facilities. I just wanted you guys to know because we're doing it similar to how we define recreational facilities. So for instance, if we're saying within any village recreational facility, as defined in the chapter, like the trails at wherever that is, Lens Cove,
Yeah.
People theoretically, can light up. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. It's not going to cover everything. So, let me know if you want some other wording, some other places. That was my question.
Okay, thank you. All right. The use and sale of cannabis within the village. Stephanie, I'm going to give that to you.
Okay. Let me pull that up. So I sent you an opt-out local law that was put together by NICOM. And I don't know if you read it or not, but basically you have to, if you want to opt out, you have to do it by December 31st. After that time, you're opted in without saying so. You should also know that if you opt out and at some later date you want to repeal that, then you can. You do it by subject to permissive referendum. And if you looked at what I sent, it's a fairly simple, law, and saying that, you opt out of licensing and establishing cannabis retail dispensaries and or on-site consumption establishments. So that's what you're opting out of. There's a law and you're saying no, thank you. And you can do that subject to permissive referendum. If you get a petition, it goes to a special election.
Well, I don't think the village is a place to sell cannabis. So I'm in favor of opting out.
Well, I think that there's enough, you're going to have enough places in Peekskill and other places. It's not like people who want to access marijuana, they can't get it. So it's one less problem we need to have and to go through. So I would before opting out.
Well, we would be receiving a portion of the tax revenue that will be generated through that. The county will be collecting the revenue and distributing it to the municipalities that allow it based on the percentage of revenue generated. There will be many dispensaries around us, so I don't see why we shouldn't be able to benefit from the law. There are more fights outside of bars than there are outside of cannabis dispensaries. They're all over the place. Out west, they're all over the place, and they're probably more heavily regulated than any other industry that you'll have in New York, and they will be susceptible to more license revocations for violations. So, I don't see why we should allow our residents who want it to go up to Peekskill to come back and use it within the confines of the village of Buchanan. Because if you're looking for detrimental effects, you could look for it when somebody's driving with it, or somebody's bringing it back into the village to use it within the village. So I'm sure that the city of Peekskill is not going to opt out. I'm sure the village of Croton's not going to opt out. The town of Cortland may, but I think if our residents want it, we should make it available to them and tax them accordingly.
Yeah, I don't think the city of Peekskill is going to opt out because they've already been talking, and that's
absolutely
working the team about with Fire Park.
I really don't think we should force our residents they're going to buy it anyway, and they're going to use it in the village anyway. And people sell it and buy it in the village right now. They have in time since people were able to package it. So why not have a business in the village who are going to pay taxes, village taxes, and and also taxes to the county, which we are going to get a portion of it also. And these industries are heavily taxed because of the amount of regulation that's required. I don't think we should be fearful of it. It's the wave of the future. Everybody keeps talking about the future, and the people who are going to use it in the future are the ones that are using it now. And if you think it's not in the village, you're sadly mistaken.
So do you think that'll calm down some people if we let them use it?
Say again?
You think that'll calm down some people and mellow them out so that they're not so hyper?
I would hope so, but I'm still under the NRC drug test policy, so I won't be able to benefit from that.
You know, you get people that drink and get happy and friendly. You get people that drink. There's no one answer as far as who's going to calm down. You know, most people have a drink and calm down. Other people have a few drinks and get really angry, you know, so the personalities still create a lot of options. I'm going to agree with Sean on this one. I'm not exactly sure what the amount of tax revenue is, but
hey, Nick,
you know.
Nick?
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. The way that's written is I think the county gets...
well, I know the percentage.
I think the county keeps 25% on their own, and then the rest of it gets distributed based on the amount of sales.
Amount of sale in the community.
Yeah,
just in the community. Correct. In the community.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think I read that it's a 4% tax, and the county will take 25%, which is 1%, or 1% of the tax. One of the 4%.
Yep.
But what I meant is, I don't know how. I have a hard time. I'm not sure what the dollar amount would be. Though we know the percentages.
So
but it's sort of like everywhere already. And I, you know, as I've said before, I kind of equate it with alcohol. You know, no matter whether it's marijuana or alcohol, it has to be used responsibly. Most people will. There will be people that will drive drunk. There will be somebody that can't handle it or misbehaves, but most people, I think, will be responsible. You know, what I have a question on is, can you regulate the location of the dispensaries so that it's not across the street from the school?
Yes.
Or, you know, are there ways to kind of control where it goes? And is there some legislation we need to look at in that regard? You know, it's one thing if it's down. Well, first of all, it can't go down in WIC because WIC is only allowed to have 25% of their business be based on customers coming in.
Hey, Nick.
Yes.
Nick, you absolutely can do local regulation, time, place, manner. You can.
Okay.
So through legislation, obviously.
So something that keeps it at least, I don't know, 500 feet from a school, 1,000 feet from a school. You know, I mean, just some kind of limitations. So the tax revenue we get would only be if we have a dispensary. I thought that everybody gets a share if they don't opt out. It's only based on if you have sales.
That's correct. It's based on a proportion of the sales within your community.
Correct.
Okay, that's the revenue stream from the county, which they will distribute.
Okay.
All right. But you have to look at the other ancillary effects. Somebody's going to be renting a vacant storefront. Somebody's going to be renting a property, you know. So you're going to have the increased business flow, whether, you know, whoever's wherever, you know, any vacant building in a commercial district within that zone could increase the revenue, you know. Plus you get the foot traffic, you know.
Wouldn't it have to be a separate business, or would it could be combined with another retail business? I wasn't clear on that.
I'm not sure either.
Oh,
no, All righty.
As much as I'm against it, I guess it is the wave of the future. And Sean does bring up a good, valid point. So does Nick. So does Teresa. So does Rich. I don't think we need any more trouble, or not that we have much trouble in the village at all, but we don't need any more. But it is a wave of the future, and it is inevitable that it's going to come into the village. So we might as well take advantage of it.
It's been the wave of the future since I went to college in 1967.
Well, now you can take advantage of it. Although, you know, it is the same as we sell beer all over the place. The only problem is that, you know, you can't have an open container, and I just don't want to see it in my parks where the children are.
Well, I would agree. I think that's fine. That's why we talked about the no smoking.
And that's really the only problem I have with it is the availability is one thing, but the usage of it in public areas where there are families it can't be tolerated.
There a lot of the other dispensaries, if you do some research, around 40 to 50% of the cannabis and THC sold in conjunction with the CBD oil is of the non-smokable kind, whether it's gummies, whether it's pills, whether it's candies. So it's not just, getting a bag of pot. There's a lot of different products, creams that would all fall under that. And the majority of the ones that some of my friends went to out in Nevada, they mostly sell it as a candy, so you don't have to smoke it. And you can cut different dosages the way you want them, So
that is correct.
Right. Although then, very popular are the gummy bears, the gummies, they're not bears. And, which is a little problematic because kids could mistake them for candy. So, you just like with alcohol and keeping it away from minors, there's a lot of parental discretion and being careful that has to be done,
So if the board is in favor of it, Stephanie, what is the next?
So we're not going to opt out. You can opt out of one or the other or both. So you're okay with retail dispensaries or on-site consumption establishments because they separate that under the law. So some people are opting out. Well, hey, we don't want you, consuming it in these, wherever, smoke rooms. I don't know.
Cafes or something, I read.
What?
Cafe.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. So if I'm understanding you right and the board does not want to opt out, then there's nothing you need to do.
Okay.
It's only if you want to opt out that we have to do this before December 31st.
Well, it seems like there's a majority that would say we should not opt out. Am I correct? I'm kind of saying that we should not opt out.
Yeah.
Sean is saying that.
I don't think we should opt out, but if there is a question, if somebody wants to have the resolution, we can set forth the resolution, put it on the next agenda, and we can vote on it and make it formal. That's all.
I think by not opting out, you're not opting out, and you don't have to do anything anyway.
You don't have to do anything, right?
Yeah. But I think, I don't know, Stephanie said that you can control where they go. So I don't know if you want to do some type of legislation where it prohibits it from the school or a church or,
Yeah, and you've got time. I mean, from what NICOM is telling everyone, they're looking at like the end of 2022 before any of this can, begins to happen. And I don't know where they're getting that information from.
I thought it was supposed to start next year. You opted out.
Next year is 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying the end of next year, Steph?
I mean, that's what NICOM is saying. Don't panic, people. You'll have plenty of time to regulate this locally. This isn't tomorrow.
I thought it was January 1st. Okay.
So if we opted out, it's subject to a permissive referendum. If we don't opt out,
Correct.
Is there there's no permissive referendum for people to say we should opt out?
No, your only duty is if you don't want it, you must opt out.
Okay. I would say we do not act right now.
Okay. And you have until December 31st.
Okay. Alrighty. So something to remember. Steph, with the games of chance, any more updates on that?
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm trying. You don't want to run this on your own, so you want to piggyback off the town, and I agree. The problem is the town doesn't have anything on the books, and so it's a little hard for me to write a local law when nobody can figure out who runs it, what the parameters are. So I guess I have to talk to council up there and see if they can resurrect something.
The town doesn't have a
games of
chance.
I go through the town clerk. She handles everything for me for my Italian feast, and most of it's all, like we said before, it's mostly all nonprofit organizations that run this. So I don't know what the hang up is here. It's profitable for our nonprofit organizations, and the town, they give out all the town clerk has all the information you need.
Yeah, I get that, Anthony. The problem is we're doing a local law saying we're gonna use the town to run our games of chance, right? Yeah. Because they've enacted it, but they haven't, at least on the books.
Oh, well, that I didn't know about.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them, and they say, "Oops, we've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, we'll be glad to do it for you." So it's my, issue as to how I'm going to word a local law to say that we're going to allow the town, which has a local we can only let the town run it for us if they've enacted a local law.
Yeah.
And they haven't, at least on the books.
All right.
So I'm trying to figure out a way to do that.
Hey, Steph,
Yeah.
do you want me, I can call the town clerk and get any documentation. They said they got a confirmation from the state. They are all registered to do games of chance. I'll reach out to the clerk tomorrow and get any documentation they have. I'll
That
get
would
it
be
over
very
to you.
helpful.
Okay, I'll do that tomorrow.
Because I could use that as a basis for the, their license, whatever it is. And
They
we'll
are
do the local
registered
law.
with the state because I do use them, and I have to send the same paperwork to the state, and it all corresponds with each other. So.
Yep, I'll make a phone call tomorrow, Steph, and see what I can get you. Okay,
That'd be great. Thanks.
no problem.
Anthony, can I ask you a question? Who do you wind up sending it to in the state?
Well, when I filed for my liquor license, if
Yeah.
I have games of chance, I have to add that to my application. So
And
it's
what
the
part of
same.
the state to collect that, in other words.
Yeah.
What,
I have the same application. I have to send the same thing to the town as I do to the state. So it's the same application for games of chance. You just have to, if there's liquor involved, you have to have a games of chance. You have to notify the liquor authority that there's a games of chance as well.
okay, it's the liquor authority. Is that it?
Liquor, the liquor authority, SLA.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So to be continued.
I just don't understand one thing. So there, at the feast, there are games of chance operating within the town of Cortland, even though they don't have a law enacted. So could we not have games of chance approved without us enacting a law?
Well, somehow they got approval by the state.
Correct,
So
correct.
somebody did something and just didn't get codified,
Right.
or they didn't send it up, or they can't figure it out either.
Yeah.
If you look at their code, they have a chapter that says games of chance. And when you go to it, it says, hey, we'll let you know if we take any further action.
Okay.
And that's that.
Yeah. The most important thing, like Stephanie said, the state has recognized that they are allowed to do games and chance.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Anthony, you're good to go.
Yeah. So Marcus, I mean, maybe the state required some sort of local law that they had done years ago. Might have a copy of it. You don't know.
Yep. Yeah. So I'll make a phone call tomorrow. We'll see if we can get it done tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Discussion on moving the village elections to November. I know Nick had mentioned this at the last meeting. Stephanie, I don't know if you had time to look into this. I think this is another, I know different municipalities have done it. I know Croton has done it. I know, oh my gosh, there's a couple other off the top of my head. And you know what? I just think, I agree with Nick. I think there would be a small cost savings, but maybe we can get a better voter turnout if we did move it to November.
And it is subject to permissive referendum.
Another permissive referendum. There you go.
Well, I've always felt that having the village elections on an off cycle, you're able to better concentrate on local issues. A lot of times during national elections and state elections, everybody gets caught up in issues that are not due to the local issues. It's always better to be able to communicate with people on a one-to-one basis on individual things off of the normal election cycle. The village law had allowed that probably for that specific reason. I've always felt that it's better, when September, October, and November comes around, you get a plethora of junk mail and people just throw them in the garbage. I throw most of them away no matter who they're from. And I would hate for our information that comes out, no matter who the candidate is, I would like that to be able to be viewed by the resident, not as junk, but as information that is pertinent to their community. So that's why I know this issue had come up 2 or 3 times before in the last decade or so. And I've always felt that it's better for us to focus on our own issues, our own candidates. And if the League of Women Voters gets a little more active in smaller elections, we would be able to use them as well as the old electoral boards and things like that have kind of gone to the wayside because they're concentrating on bigger elections. So, smaller elections, you're only talking about $2,000 or $3,000 actually, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
So, for the small cost savings And you get more bang for your buck, I think, for being able to communicate your issues without getting lost in the subterfuge of national issues.
I got a question for Stephanie. Stephanie, is this something then that if it was to pass, it would have to be voted on by the citizens?
This is subject to permissive referendum. So yeah, if you got a petition by 20% of the voters, like we were talking about with all the others, then you do a special election because of the timing. Well, depending on when you pass.
In other words, if the board was to, let me just get the facts straight. If the board passes something like this, it goes into effect unless there is a permissive, what do you call it?
Petition.
Referendum. And then if there is one and they do not, and they decide they don't want it, then it just goes back. Is that correct? Have I got that
That's
right?
correct. So you'll pass the law. Let's say you vote, you pass it. It doesn't go into effect until the time period for getting a petition. So 30 days later, if you get a petition signed by enough people, then it does not go into effect until you hold the special election and they get to vote. If the time passes and you don't get such a petition, then it goes into, then it's law.
But could you have it? Could you have it? Just have this November election. Have the voters decide when they want it.
You actually can do this subject to your own. You can offer it as a permissive referendum. Yes.
So what you
can do that for.
The other avenue we could take, instead of having a permissive referendum, is just make it a ballot measure at our next election.
That's what I said.
No, you said November. Our next election is in March. See, if we were to have a permissive referendum and somebody was to contact the Board of Elections and get the petitions together, they would need around 200 or 300 signatures. If they didn't get those 200 or 300 signatures, then it would automatically become law.
Stephanie was answering me. I was saying, this November, would the citizens here be able to vote on whether they want the elections to be in the following November or the following March? Could you answer that, Stephanie?
No, wait. So if you wouldn't put it on the ballot this November because our elections are in March. So you would put it, if you want to make it a ballot measure, it would go next March.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've always preferred ballot measures instead of permissive referendums, as it's a little bit difficult, especially when the village has made the decision not to assist residents in signing petitions. And a lot of times people don't understand how to navigate through the petition process for permissive referendums. So I've always been in favor of ballot measures versus permissive referendums because people don't understand how to do it.
Well, I don't know. That's up to the board what they want to do. And Sean, I always thought the same way as you. I always thought, that it would be separate, the village elections, but we're just not seeing the interest and we're not seeing the voters coming out. So I thought maybe more voters would come out with the November election because they know they have to vote in November anyhow. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Well, I see both sides of the issue here. I kind of like the idea of it being held with the November elections. Save a little money, not a big deal, but a little money. But, to the extent that people get involved with the larger elections, I thought it could increase turnout. I still think I lean that way, but truthfully, it's not it's not the most important issue in the world to me. But I think it would be good to switch to November.
Mm-hmm.
Low voter turnout could have been a result of uncontested elections too. So there have been a lot of elections in the past couple of election cycles that have been uncontested. So nobody's going to have an uncontested election.
Yeah.
This one was.
I think you leave it alone. It's a unique situation. I like it. I think it's unique for the village, and the people that care are going to come out whether it's November or March. So.
All right. So the board has to make a decision on that, and we'll continue to look at that.
Well, what's the decision going to be? Is there going to be a resolution at the next meeting for a permissive referendum or a ballot measure?
Meeting. But, I know Nick had brought this up, so this is up for further discussion. Let's move on to the next. Lens Cove benches and paddle sport dock. Nick, what do you have? Any
Well-
other on that?
Well, I think that, I know we've discussed this before and the board was not like, overwhelmingly for it, but I think there is some support for it. Since then, I've gotten there've been a couple of emails from people in support of it. And I went back over the LWRP survey and looked at by the way, I highly recommend everybody look at that if you haven't. If you go to the village website, LWRP link, you can get the complete survey results. And I think the most interesting thing is people's individual comments. And there are 10 pages that are it's over 100 pages, but 10 pages are just on the Buchanan waterfront area. And a lot of people mention water access and many specifically paddle sports, kayaks, that kind of thing. There were about 100 people responding to the Buchanan section of the survey. There were 583, I think, respondents in general to the survey for Cortland, Buchanan, Verplank. But there were 99 of those people that were from Buchanan. So there are a lot of specific comments having to do with the waterfront. And I mean, it boggles the mind because I'm going on a tangent a little bit here, but because, you get one person saying that they think that the Indian Point property should become a spiritual area. And then the next person says there should be an inflatable obstacle course on the river. So what people want to see there varies so much. But there is a lot of support for river access, and I think that there is a source of funding here, so we don't have to go to any. It won't come out of any general tax funds. I did meet there with Bob Wheeler and with the engineer George Palmer just to sort of assess what had to be done. I don't think the engineer's gotten back to us yet, but there is some corroded sections of the boat dock that need to get removed. The old boat dock where rebar is sticking out, broken edges of concrete. There is stuff that has to get removed in order to make a smooth, walkable surface, safe surface.
Nick, can I ask just a question on the dock part? Are you talking about a dock that would support any kind of motorized vehicle?
No, paddle sport only.
Only paddle sport, so non-motorized.
Yes.
What about those skis, the water skis?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
Paddle sports.
Is it because you just want to keep it to that, or the dock wouldn't support it?
Well, it would be a completely different kind of dock you would need.
Okay.
And I mean, people with jet skis with those things normally back into a boat ramp the same way that they used to with the ramp that was there. You could see them do it down at George's Island. There's a long boat ramp there. So it's a completely different kind of access. Paddle sport is quiet, non-intrusive on other people that are in the park. And actually it's gotten very popular. A lot of the comments came from people that are in the Cortland, the Cortland Rowing Association, which operates out of Verplank there, said that it would be great to have another place to have access. So this is a modular hard rubber dock that makes it easier to get in and out of the water. I understand if you go up to Ansville Circle, they have the same material, and I haven't seen it, but I understand that Peekskill somewhere along the waterfront put in a similar dock. I have to go look at that one. I'm not aware of what they put in there. So I'm waiting for the engineer to get back on that. A lot of the other things, even aside from the kayak dock, there are a lot of comments if you look at the survey, and there's questions are phrased in different ways. So I highly encourage people to read through the comments. But there's a lot of comments on how, comments like, it used to be nice, but now it's run down. And I think getting rid of the decrepit boat ramp, putting a simple kayak dock, boat, canoe, kayak, paddle sport dock, some new benches, would be a good start in sprucing up the park there a little bit. So waiting for the engineer to get back on what he was going to have to reach out to the DEC, because you got to get permission when you're working in the water. I don't have any, I haven't heard back yet. Marcus, you haven't spoken to George Palmer yet, right?
No, I left him a message after we spoke, so he'll probably call me tomorrow.
Right.
If we have more updates, at the next meeting, you can give them to us. I know people have mentioned to me they were interested in the paddle, in the dock.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, Tim's retirement, 34 years. He retires the end of the month. And also our senior Mike Lepore, our senior representative, he has resigned. So I'd like to do 2 certificates of appreciation for them at the July meeting. Okay. Why not? So on here, it says hiring a labor. So I'd like to do that into executive session. We'll go into a short executive session. Cindy, I know she had sent earlier the list of people for the recreational personnel for camp and pool. So at the next meeting, the July meeting, we'll be approving that. It'll be in our packet, right, Cindy?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Okay, and the last thing I have on here is, Marcus added this on as a capital discussion. We have to make some decisions. The items, so I'm just going to summarize what we spoke about. The Freightliner plow truck, $212,000. The police SUV at $50,000. Police records management software and equipment, $50,000. Fire chief vehicle, the SUV, $62,000. Building planning, zoning, code enforcement application, $50,000. Financial application software, $50,000. Tax certiorari settlement, $85,000. Village hall heating system, including boiler replacement and heating units, $125,600. And replacement of all lights in Village Hall to LED, $50,000. This is the discussion we had, and is everybody still in agreement with this?
Just to let everybody know, I did provide everybody a spreadsheet of what the principal interest would be, plus what the potential tax rate increases are going to be. I just want to see if the board is willing to do this, because the plan would be is to have a board resolution for the next meeting, to do a bond resolution, to do a ban of all the new items. The $1 million bond ban that we took out for the sewer treatment plant last year and the fire truck that we just took recently are both due in March. So the idea was to combine those 2 items with all the new items into a new bond in March. So we can modify the plan at that point, but at least we can go through the ban issue first, get the money available, start buying the equipment, and then we could decide if you want to keep anything into a ban in March or go into everything into a bond. So that's the plan. I want to see if the board is okay with that, so I can have the bond council prepare a bond resolution for the next meeting.
The only thing, like I mentioned before, with the police SUV, I don't see that going into a bond. That's got to stay in a ban, because you know what? That might last 4 or 5 years. You don't want to be paying for it over 15 to 20 years. So that one, I mentioned that before. I just have a problem with bonding that.
I don't think you're allowed to bond anything past its life expectancy. Is that correct, Marcus?
Yes. What happens is on those kind of vehicles, that life expectancy is longer. If you see one of the, I actually provided the board with a amortization table for each individual item and how much the cost of that would be. So those items do last longer. They might not last long if we don't want to keep them past that yet, but they do last longer. So of course the board can decide for the police vehicle if you want to do 5 years or keep it in the 15 or 20 year bond issue if you wish. All right, look at the amortization tables. We got time. And what I'm saying, what's good about the process we're talking about now, we're not taking out a bond till March of next year. So we have time to discuss how you want to do a final financing of those projects. But take your time, look at the spreadsheets, give me a call. All I want to do right now is do a ban for everything right now, because I think the board's okay with doing everything that we discussed. Do a ban for now, and then by March we can decide if you want to keep anything short term or want to put everything into a long-term investment.
Wasn't there some other sewer plant work that was supposed to go on there? So a couple of doors that were to be replaced. Did you mention those?
Yeah.
Because I tried to open up the file that you gave me, I couldn't open it up.
I'll print out the stuff for you. I think the idea was to the discussion was to use the money that's coming in from the federal asset from the Recovery Act. I think Sean, you brought up that suggestion.
Yeah, well, we had a bunch
Correct.
of different scenarios
Correct.
we were going through. We wanted to see what the actual undesignated fund balance was after the books were closed out. We wanted to see how much money we were actually getting from the shutdown fund that we couldn't apply for. So there were a lot of variables that were in there before we made a decision on everything that we were going to spend, especially since right now, I believe you said there's over $600,000 in the undesignated fund balance, and we were anticipating getting $270,000
from the federal Recovery Act. That's correct.
But the Recovery Act is only half of it this year and half next year.
But that half was enough to cover some of the sewer projects that we discussed.
Right. So we had to use it on infrastructure. So yes.
Correct.
Yeah. Is there any opposition to making this a ballot measure?
That wouldn't be until next March.
Because all of these things everybody knew about beforehand. None of these things are a surprise that came up after the budget was passed. These things have all been talked about for many months, even before the budget being passed. I just think it's kind of a roundabout way. You pass a budget, and then 2 months later you say, by the way, we want to borrow an extra $1 million through another bond because we were surprised.
We don't have to do any of these things. I know the highway, they need a plow truck. I know that. So, we don't have to do any of these things.
Well,
Or we can pay for it a different way.
It is debated.
Well, we can pay for it a different way. There's all different scenarios.
We don't have to do a new boiler until suddenly they have no heat at the village hall.
The police department, just to let you guys know, we are a little delayed. If everybody knows what happened with the market, the police vehicles, the price is going to go up slightly due to the chips and everything going on. So I know Sean Farrow sent an email to Rich and myself today. Shane sent an email to Richard and myself that he would like to get that moving as soon as possible. So that's important. And I know Bob wanted to get the extra truck, which is a plow truck for the winter. So yeah, if you hold off, there'll be not until next March. And then if it's on the referendum, then you got to do the 20-day and 30-day estoppel, and that's a estoppel period. The permissive there's a estoppel period you still got to do. So that money won't be available to probably May of next year.
Oh, no, listen, I understand that. And I would just like to see how much is in our undesignated fund balance after the books are closed. Because if you got $600,000 in there, I don't think we were anticipating using any of that $600,000. So if we took $300,000 from there, you would be borrowing a lot less money. And especially if you end up with an extra $200,000 because we didn't expend hardly any funds last year. That's all I'm saying.
Are you talking about taking out of the fund balance?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I mean, you hammered us before about I almost have to laugh. I'm sorry, but you hammered us with the fund balance and how much was in there, blah, 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 blah. And now,
I just don't like borrowing money when you have unknown future revenue. That's all.
Yeah, I don't like to bond at all.
I understand it. And
I'm not a big debt person, but
But we can't deplete the fund balance either.
No.
Listen, deficit spending is a slippery slope.
Yeah, we've been there before with that. So
okay. Yes, I'm just talking. I'm just discussing different options. That's all.
Figure out another way other than bonds. So let's get our financial wizards on this and.
Everything doesn't have to be a unanimous vote.
No, I realize that, but it's got to be 3 people.
And the bonding would include, right now we're still carrying over the repairs from the 4th Street pump station, are we not?
Yeah, the pump station and the fire truck bands that are due in March of next year.
Which Sean actually was a surprise that what we had to do there, unlike a lot of the other stuff.
I understand. Yeah, that was a couple of years. That was 2 years last year, 2 years ago, right?
Well, it was completed last fall?
Yeah.
Well, when was that completed? Seems very recent.
Last year.
Yeah.
The final payment was a couple months ago. The fencing had to be finished, so that was just done a couple months ago. So the project is closed off now.
Right. So that list that you read at the beginning, Teresa, was based on the conversation we had last time. I have about 8 or 9 objects highlighted here, and that seems to be what you just read. And I'm just trying to remember, did the board come to a consensus that those were the things that were important to proceed with? I mean, I know those, I think we did. I just don't remember.
Yeah, we did.
That was the list that I thought that you guys want to go with. So I got the amortization table set up and I got a bond resolution ready to go for Tuesday. So if you don't want to do it, you got to tell the department heads they're not getting anything that we listed. So whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that if the board still agrees to those priorities, I think we should. I mean, it's not ideal to be taking on the debt, but I don't want to deplete the fund balance. If we want to really get austere about this, we can go back through the list and pick out the like the really critical. I mean, to me, redoing the boiler is critical. It's an old, inefficient boiler, and we're just pissing money down the drain. So I would definitely, make that a high priority. Can you make do with if there's a vehicle you can make do with for a little longer, make do. If there's a vehicle that you have to have, you can't make do any longer, then it becomes.
Nick, this was the list from the department heads that they said they need and they need yesterday. So that list is from the department heads. We had a meeting with all the department heads. Bob is here. And all the departments said this is what they need to operate. So
okay, so
I thought we agreed upon this.
We did agree. We agreed on a priority. We were waiting to find out exactly how much we had in the fund balance, how much we were going to the books being closed out, how much extra money we had there. And we did talk about bonding everything, and we did come to an agreement on the priorities. Absolutely.
So as a suggestion, maybe to get this thing done, if the bond resolution is approved, the ban, this will be a short-term ban. It won't be a whole year. It'll be to March of next year. So what we could do by that point, before we go to long-term debt, we'll have our financial status. And if the board wants to move money out of fund balance, we can pay off that debt at that point and just go to long-term debt of the items that you wish to go to. But at least we can get the stuff
I like
forward.
that idea. I like that idea. Like right now, you're including $500,000 for the paving program in there.
The payment program is part of the overall budget. That's not included in there, no, because that's part of the operating budget.
Okay.
That was approved in the
right.
That's correct.
Right.
Budget. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sorry. I saw it on this list here. I thought you were trying to put that in.
Well, what was on the list was whether we were going to reduce the paving budget in order to put in the sidewalks on Albany Post Road. Remember, we had a $150,000 increase, and we were discussing paving one of the streets that would have saved us $200,000 or so we could put in the extra $150,000 in drainage and still get the $150,000 from the state for the sidewalk. That's why you might have a little thing on there about
there's a couple of other options for that, by the way.
Yeah.
I went over there with George Palmer and looked at an option of instead of putting in a sidewalk, putting in a separated pedestrian lane with a guardrail, and that would avoid the drainage situation that we would have had to do. And there may be some other financing options, I'm understanding. So that's just an update on that. I don't know, Marcus, were you going to update everybody on that?
Sure. On the after some discussion with the state, Sandy Gaylor's office waited for a couple of weeks. They finally got back to me and said that they were able to. They think they'll be able to provide additional $180,000 to the Route 9A sidewalk. So they'll be willing to give us the additional money to get the sidewalks project done. So I'm waiting for final approval. We have to provide some documentation to the state, which we did when I was away on vacation, but I actually got the information up to the state, and I should hopefully know by next week if the money will be available.
Perfect. Yes, I was not looking to use taxpayer dollars on the Route 9A corridor. That's their road, so let them pay for it. So
if the projects are still good for everybody, the idea would be to move ahead with the bond resolution, and before the March final decision of long-term debt, we can make determination if we want to use other funding sources to pay off that debt, which is only a couple months. So it'll be, a little bit of interest for those couple months, but at least the projects can be moving. We can start moving ahead with it. And then if the board decides to take reduce fund balance to pay projects for, or we get additional grant money, or when the federal money comes in, we can then reduce the overall debt by those amounts. Or if we
want to make it part of the next budget.
Correct. Right. Whatever you guys would like to decide.
If you write it up with everything, we can kind of break it down a la carte later on.
Correct.
Great idea, Marcus. I like it. I think we can go with that.
Sounds good.
I think you got to move on the vehicles. The vehicles are a necessity for the winter. The cop car is a necessity. I think these are things that you can pay off at that time.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
That sounds like the way to go.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so any comments? I have a few things. All right, Nick's going to be the
I'd like to bring up a motion, Mayor.
Oh, a motion or?
I'd like to consider a motion to hire back our labor attorney to negotiate the police contract, and for the following reasons. One, our attorney has the knowledge and experience to go up against Mr. LaFaro. Two, he knows all the mediators and arbitrators and which ones to pick in case of arbitration or mediation. Three, Mr. LaFaro will not accept a settlement negotiated without him. Four, to face off against Mr. LaFaro, you need an experienced and professional person. Five, PBA contracts are different from the Teamsters, as in the PBA contracts, only the PBA can invoke arbitration. Six, the mediator tends to side with the more knowledgeable. So without Craig, we are at a disadvantage. Seven, he and his firm know all the other contracts. Therefore, they know what are reasonable and unreasonable demands. Eight, taking politicians out of negotiating process prevents personality conflicts. Nine, he did exceptionally well with all the givebacks in the Teamsters contracts. And 10, the village needs an expert pro to negotiate Section 270C, because improper results here could cost the village severely, and we could be talking into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would like the board to consider using Craig again. I know we cost money, but I think it's necessary. I think in the long run, the village will save money.
I would be in favor of that. I think that that's something that requires a professional expertise. I would prefer to have the experienced labor attorney doing that. I think that it's just like and partly it's your number 8 for me. That it's a small village and a lot of people know each other. There's a lot of long on relationships that have gone on for years, and people know each other. And I think that the labor attorney would bring more knowledge and experience to the table, and would avoid any kind of conflicts like that. I would support that.
Mm-hmm.
Any contract that's negotiated would have to be reviewed by the board and voted on by the board. So I don't understand what you guys are afraid of.
Well, even I'm not an expert on labor. I'd rather hear from an experienced labor attorney when I'm weighing how I feel, because it's not my branch of expertise.
Well, you voted on 2 contracts already, Nick, right?
Well, yes, but we used
because somebody suggested it to you, right?
We also use the labor. We have done it in-house, and I think it was rather tedious. And I think that the labor attorneys bring something to the table that could serve as an advantage to the village. I would definitely feel more comfortable with that. It's nothing personal, Sean, but
well, listen, I understand.
I think it would serve the village well to have a professional doing that negotiating.
So you said that we've negotiated a contract in-house. When was the last successful negotiated contract that the current village board negotiated? Or were all of the contracts negotiated by somebody else? Because you said you had done it in-house before and it was very difficult. I don't think you've actually
negotiated one.
I didn't do it because I wouldn't know where to begin. I'm being quite honest.
That's cool. I got you.
Rich had some experience with that, and Rich did work on the last contract, and I think that his experience.
Nick, it's the last two contracts, the police contract and the Teamsters, was done by a professional. The previous highway contract was done by me.
Highway or police?
Highway. The police, I was gotten into with the police, realizing that what we were facing as a village, and the mayor spoke to me, and kind of ironically at the same time, Teresa said, "Look, I'm thinking of, we go to a professional," and I said to her, "Yes, I agree with you totally." And I emphasize that the part that I mentioned about the not the arbitrator. Let me see. Just give me a second here.
Mediator.
The mediator. Yes, the mediator practically admitted to us that she's going to side with the party that knows more. So I knew at that particular point that this was a game that I was a minor leaguer trying to play in the major leagues. And the Mr. LaFaro is very good at his job. I might say off the record, he's kind of not really nice to deal with either, whereas the Teamsters are decent people. And I dealt with many labor negotiations, and there's always heated talk in between and back and forth and everything else. But LaFaro takes the highest level of insanity. And I think that Craig would be able to get us more than any amateur doing it, because Craig is a professional at it. He's done it before. He knows when LaFaro would go off and say, well, this community pays this or does this or gives this percentage. He has all that information right off the top of his head. So that's my reasoning for wanting to use a professional.
The last two contracts that were negotiated for the PBA, the negotiations lasted approximately 3 years. The last contract that was negotiated, that was approved in March, still had open issues that were requested to be arbitrated. It's always been my contention that a fair contract won't go to mediation or arbitration, that part of negotiations each side has to give and each side has to take. When you come to an impasse and you have certain standards that you don't want to negotiate, that's going to be automatic mediation and arbitration.
We can't go to arbitration.
Excuse me?
We cannot go to arbitration on a...
Listen, I use the terms interchangeably. We mean the same thing, Rich.
No, they don't.
Okay. I said me and you mean the same thing. I'm sorry we're having a...
No, that's the difference.
Can I ask a question? Marcus, can I ask you a question? You've been in a lot of municipalities. Have generally negotiations been done by members of the municipal boards, or have they been done by attorneys in general? What have you seen? How has this been handled in the places you've been?
Every place except for one, every place that had a labor attorney handle the negotiations except for one. But the one that didn't do it had an internal labor attorney full time, which was a bigger municipality.
Basically it was a labor attorney in all cases then.
And I'm sure those people who were negotiating for more than 6 people. That's what we're talking about. 6 people. When you're talking about the village of Croton, there's over 27 officers. The city of Peekskill, I think, is 60 or 100 officers. Of course, they're going to be able to have a labor attorney. I just think negotiating a contract for 3 years with outstanding issues to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars doesn't serve anybody.
Mr. LaFaro doesn't care whether he's representing 6 or 600.
I don't understand.
Because what is in the back of his mind, which you're not understanding, Sean, is you can't. He's not going to set a precedent because there's 6 people that's going to destroy his contracts in other places. I'll put it this way: me and you will be in the same situation. LaFaro will make a joke out of both of us.
Okay, so what's the harm of letting me try? You guys had said you'd give me 16 months. That's still less than half of the amount of time you took the last time.
Right, and I listened to you the last time, and I don't mean this in a wrong way, but half the time you don't know what you're talking about in labor.
Okay.
You know, 207C is one of the most hideous things for municipalities. You could wind up owing people hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I know that, and we have already entered into that. But parts of that 207C that you tried to get, well, I don't want to talk about the negotiation, but there are parts of the 207C that are definitely not fair to your employees. And I'll say this in public. I don't think that it's right that you take away a public employee's medical benefits from his family if he doesn't return to work within a certain time period. If the guy gets hurt on the job, you're going to take it away in 3, 4, 5 months, and that's what the law says. And that's what you guys tried to enact.
Since we're going into a new contract, but not only that, when we had an officer a couple of years ago, he was taken care of. The village, he did not get hurt. Believe me, the village took care of him and his medical, everything. So
absolutely, that's
what we did. So
I just don't understand what you guys are afraid of trying to let me have a shot at it. If you want to take away that ability, that's fine. We'll in the next budget we'll put money in for, I don't know, was it $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year for negotiations? These were tough negotiations. So
they
always are tough. It's the last two.
This was extremely tough.
Yeah.
So, Sean, but I would still like you to be involved with it, with the labor attorney. I still would like you to be part of the negotiations, if that's okay.
Well, the last 2 contracts that were handled were the first 2 contracts that the village ever hired a labor attorney for. Mm-hmm. The last 2 contracts were the longest negotiations, I believe, in the history of the village of Buchanan, both cycles. I believe that the first contract that was negotiated in 2015 or 2016 was billed as the one to work out all the kinks so that the second one would be easier. The second one was only basically in effect for, 60 days. I don't think that we were well served by that, or the employees were well served by that. It'd be nice if you guys kept your word to me as well as to the PBA. Me and Marcus had spent several hours together coming up with a strategy. I had already communicated things with the chief, and we did some research on it. But that's according to Rich, the negotiator already knows everything that the village wants or can get, or either way. If he already knows all of this, we should have a contract in 30 days, not 3 years. But
if everybody
you guys, that's fine.
If everybody agrees, we can have it in 30 days. So,
but the terms and conditions you guys set in the executive session were non-starters for everybody, including me. So,
I still like you to be involved. I still like you to be involved.
And I'll vote on it. I'll vote for or against the contract that is put forth, just like the rest of you. That's okay.
That's how this works.
Sure, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay, so I just had a few updates. I just wanted to.
Point of order, Mayor. Rich,
we're not voting on anything, and it will be at the next meeting.
I realize that, but I just was wondering if you were going to amend your new business to have a resolution, or because you had mentioned you had appointed me at the organizational meeting, I think it was, or maybe the meeting after that to do the contract negotiation. I don't think there was anything in writing, but if we're going to change course, if you want to put something in writing, or is it just going to be a word of mouth thing? So I'll just call the PBA rep and tell them that I've been removed as a primary negotiator, and that the village will contact them through what's the guy's name? Or are we going to set a budget line for him and everything? Or
remember when we did the budget, I had asked you at that time if you wanted to take the money out of the budget for the labor attorney, and you said no. So that money's already in there. We never removed that.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm not the lead negotiator now. Is that what I'm saying?
You are going to be part of the negotiation team with the labor attorney. if you would like to still continue to do that.
I followed my orders. If that's what you're directing me to do, that's what I'll do.
Sean, you make me feel so good when you say stuff like that. Stop.
Exactly. Just like I was willing to take on that task for free. My girlfriend will be very happy because she was angry at the amount of hours that I was going to have to take. Now I can tell her that I'm a consultant, so it won't be as many hours.
The hours have been brutal. The hours have been brutal. We've been doing a lot of stuff. There's a lot happening. So yeah, I know it's not business as usual. It's a lot going on.
Sure.
Like I've said. So, okay. Are we good with that? Have we settled that? Okay.
I want to have a vote to see whether there'd be a motion at the next meeting, the July meeting, to hire Craig.
I'm fine with putting that on the agenda for a vote.
Okay.
Sure.
Is Craig the only lawyer that we know of? Do we shop this, or he's the only guy we ever use?
I think there's only, Anthony, I think there's only two in Westchester County and above, that two law firms to do it.
Yeah.
And then within each law firms, they tend to specialize in different job sites and things like that, like highway, police, construction,
Okay.
things like those things. And the attorneys, it's kind of like other attorneys would be medical malpractice attorneys or divorce lawyers.
Well, he's a labor specialist.
Yeah, and especially he's done a lot of the police contracts. So, LaFaro has a way of saying things that, let's put it this way, to be mild, are not really true. And he can get the best of people because he's been doing it for so damn long.
No, I got to be honest with you though. Sean asked me to help him with this, and the more you're talking, the more I want to sit down with this guy LaFaro.
Okay.
I'm not this guy.
We can have two.
You like a challenge, huh?
I like a challenge, especially from a guy like that. He could be a smooth talker, but I like those kind of guys.
Well, it's always better. It's always better to be able to drag things out and make your own money by saying no. You know, when you don't have a financial gain, you have the ability to be more flexible. But if you're going to just say no to everything and make sure you keep getting the check for your meetings and have billable hours, you have an advantage to go 3 years, 4 years.
Well, that's why.
Because the guys know they're going to get retro. So why do they care?
Yeah.
Well, that's the fact. If you're going to do it, you have to, and they're the only ones who go to arbitration. So you're going to have to say no retro.
Okay.
We can try. Yeah.
That worked. That's always
worked. I don't want to get too far into discussing the contract.
That's always worked.
Right now. So I just have a few announcements. Tomorrow night is the first meeting, and we will put that on Facebook, the information of the Indian Point Oversight Board. So that's their first meeting. So anybody interested in seeing that. The July meeting, not sure yet what we're doing. I've taken a short little poll. I know Sean wants to go live. Anthony, I'm not sure. I haven't asked you yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm ready to go live.
Just as long as everybody understands that if you have not been vaccinated, the CDC is still requiring in groups that you wear a mask. So not sure. I can't ask anybody if they're vaccinated or not, but I just want to put that out there.
What do you mean we can't ask for proof of vaccination when people come in?
Isn't that a HIPAA? Isn't that with you guys on the board? I don't
know.
Employees either.
I don't know.
No, I believe you can ask if somebody's been vaccinated. They can refuse to answer.
Or they don't have to tell you the truth.
Exactly.
Well, you can ask, but you can't ask to see their proof. Because as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to start meeting in public, and public is going to be coming in, if there's no way to verify unvaccinated people and require them to wear masks, I'd rather stay home.
But all the regulations have been lifted.
The CDC.
I don't care. In a hardware store or a movie theater.
If people are not vaccinated, they have to wear a mask. And I think and if we don't have a way to verify that, I just soon stay home.
We'll get verification from the CDC on that. But if not, we won't be sitting together. We'll sit, separated.
I mean, I had COVID and I had the vaccine, and I feel pretty safe from the various strains that the vaccine was developed, along the lines of. But there are other strains around now that if people are not vaccinated, those strains are increasing in places where there's a low percentage of vaccinated people. People move all around and interact all around. And if we cannot verify and require masks of unvaccinated people, I'd rather stay home.
I'm not a board member, but I almost died of it. I was in the hospital 7 days. If that happens, I need to protect myself and my family. I'm sorry to say that. I get emotional because I almost died from this thing. I could not breathe for 7 days, and I don't want to go through that again. So that's my own personal opinion. If I can't be there, I'm not going to risk my life.
Okay, so we need to work this out. I don't know if the state will be extending it past July 5th, the option to do virtual. The other thing I wanted to mention.
Was Stephanie saying something?
Steph, are you there?
Well, there is, and there always has been with the open meetings law, there always has been the ability to do it virtually. So some of the board members can come and some wouldn't. I don't know how well that would work.
Yeah.
For you. And also, I mean, I don't understand. Are you saying you don't think we can ask the public to wear a mask and socially distant if they come to a meeting?
I know. I was out at the town last week. They were still requiring people to fill out a form, and they were also requiring that within the building they had to wear a mask.
Right. So, okay. I
thought
maybe you guys were saying you thought we couldn't do that.
Okay.
I think you can do that, but we'll verify it.
Okay. Yes, please. And then I'll let the board know which way we're doing this.
I mean, otherwise, except for the fact that I have to start putting on pants again,
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the visual. Anyhow, I also wanted to mention there is work being done on the gas line, the original gas lines. I'm sure Sean saw this off of Blakely Avenue there. They're doing some maintenance on that. So if anybody asks you, that's exactly what the gas pipeline people are doing right now. I think that's all I have for this evening. Who else, Rich, do you have anything for us this evening?
No.
Okay. Sean, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. Now, I was reviewing the bills over the past week, and I noticed that we're paying a lot of money for inspecting the new Con Edison gas lines. Now, it's not coming out of capital. There is no escrow set up for Con Ed, and there are a lot of bills from Han Engineering for gas installation inspections. And I was wondering why we're paying that. If we don't pay for inspections for our residents when they put in a permit, why are we paying for inspections for Con Edison?
Is that on the backfill, Sean, or the actual installation of the main?
It doesn't exactly say. It says for Con Edison installation. So, and it states for Blakely Avenue and Broadway. So I don't know what we would be inspecting. And even if we are inspecting it, we shouldn't be having the taxpayers take it.
No, if it's road restoration, I don't know why our DPW can't.
No, I understand. I was just, I had asked Cindy, and Cindy wasn't sure. And so I'm asking Marcus. I don't know if anybody else, when they were reviewing the bills, had noticed all of the charges that they're going over a several month period for the gas inspections.
Yeah, they pay the street opening permit fee, Con Edison, like everybody else does. And the inspections are to make sure they are not interfering with any water lines or sewer lines as they do the work. I can have George provide some more details, but this is a process that's been going on with the village for years with Han Engineering.
No, I know they're really good with their billing. They bill in 15-minute increments. They spread it out over different professionals. I've never had a problem with their billing. What I had an issue with was where the payments are coming from. If it's being paid for out of the opening fees, that's fine. But there seems to be a lot of inspections that I don't know exactly how much the Con Ed opening fees were. Mm-hmm. Generally, we would have. I know you don't have an escrow account to be able to account for it.
Correct.
But there's nothing to correlate whether the resident's paying for it or if everything is being covered by the opening fee.
Yeah, the street opening fee does not cover for that. So the items will be either we have to increase the fees to Con Edison to do the work, or not have Han Engineering do any kind of inspections on the property. So again, I can have George come to the next meeting to detail what he does, and then we can decide which way the board would like to go on any future work from Con Edison.
Well, if
Is our building inspector capable of performing those inspections?
I do not believe so, but I can ask them that same question. Again, this is something that every time Con Edison opens up a road, Honda Engineering is there to review the work. It's prior practice, and we can change it if the board wishes
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can set specs, and in-house, we should have somebody that inspects those specifications.
Correct.
I mean, no reason why we'd have to have an engineering firm do that work.
Either that or just increase the opening fees.
Correct.
Our residents shouldn't be paying for Con Ed upgrades because they're going to get charged for those upgrades
Anyway.
in their distribution taxes or distribution bill.
Right.
So we gotta have a mechanism to prevent our residents from getting double charged from
We're
Con
always
Ed.
going to get double charged. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. So let me get some research together, get you some options. I'll get you something for the next meeting.
Yeah, it's a good pickup, Sean.
Thanks. Also, I saw, and there was a bill about a feasibility study. Now, it didn't say what a feasibility study was. I don't know if anybody noticed that. My notes weren't good on that for some reason.
So who was the vendor? Was that who was?
My notes were, I was writing things down pretty quick, so.
I don't know. Cindy,
I'll have to look back again.
Cindy, do you remember what that was for? Have you met with on that one?
I don't remember that. Sean, I don't think asked me that one.
Yeah, if you give me the vendor, Sean, we actually look it up for you.
And also there was some billing for a Save Tree remediation. I don't remember if you guys remember back in 2018 and 2019, I had mentioned that Save Tree was operating outside of their permit where they were storing wood chips and other debris, dumping it down the hill.
Yep.
But it seems like for some reason we got billed for something for the plans to remediate. We shouldn't be paying to tell somebody to follow their site plan.
Was that from Han Engineering too?
I believe it was illegal. It was a legal thing. I'm not sure if it was from Han.
Okay. Let me know. I know if it was a prosecutor. Maybe.
I think it was the prosecutor. It might have been the prosecutor.
It could have been the prosecutor because the building department, based on what you told us, we actually sent the building inspectors down there, and they actually started telling these guys to move those chips away and get out of the area they're not supposed to work. So it was a great find. So the prosecutor and the building department is on top of it right now.
So are they going to court? Or are they going to pay the fees? Or there again, I hate to bring something up from 2018 and 2019, only to have the village resident billed for it in 2021.
Yeah, I don't know.
They should be paying for it.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand because I know we were trying to work it out with the building inspectors and making them do the right thing. If there was a prosecutor involved, I can find out for you why.
We shouldn't be absorbing the cost because it's counterproductive. Why should we ask anybody to change anything if we're going to have to pay to make them change it?
No, I agree with you. That's why I was going to have the building inspector just take care of it. Maybe it was a conference call between the prosecutor and building inspector, but I'll double check that for you. Yep.
More info on that.
The other thing was I hadn't heard anything. I know I had brought up a couple of months ago about the sewer plant communicating with the town of Cortland and the county. Has there been any meetings with them about any options, about them tying into us, about them contributing to any upgrades to the plant, or has there been any movement or any discussions?
I have met with the supervisor, and all I can tell you right now, the engineers are talking. So there's nothing they're talking. So when I have further information, I'll be able to share that with you.
Okay. And also, I'm setting up my vacation schedule for the summer.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Good. Okay.
What?
No, what I needed to ask you guys in July, I'd like to have a special meeting over the Indian Point property. Marcus has some updated information. Thank you for reminding me. And I didn't know, I know Anthony, that's why I asked him, July 14th through 18th is not good for him. So
that's a Wednesday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay. Yeah, but that's a bad week. So the next 2 weeks, is there an evening that we could do a special meeting for the Indian Point property? And Marcus has some information about our planner. So there's going to have to be a little discussion on that too.
I'm away the 31st through the 7th, from July 1st through August 7th.
Okay, all right.
Between the feast, there's 2 weeks between there. I'm good there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm out of town August 14th to 28th.
Okay.
I'm here
13th.
July and August.
You're going to be here July and August?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you wanted to do something in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I wanted to do something in July.
Can we do it?
2 weeks in July. Sean, did you plan anything yet? Or
No, I haven't had it. I'm pretty well open, except for August 7th and July 17th, but that's a Saturday.
Oh, okay. So we could schedule something the last 2 weeks of July.
Sure.
Okay. Marcus, did you want to mention anything about our planner, David?
Just so that the board, I got informed that David Stallman is no longer going to be the village planner. He's being reassigned at his company. They want to assign a different person. He's attended a couple of meetings. Vincent has attended a couple of meetings. So I want to see if the board would like to entertain, maybe get a new proposal from them since we got a different planner, or maybe entertain another planner, Behan, who's been working on the waterfront, who's Nick has experience with them as well. And maybe take a look at, starting brand new, look at two different planning companies and consultants and take a look at the fee structure and also see who you guys feel more comfortable working with. So just throwing it out there, see what you want to do. We've had it. Vincent is just beginning to learn the job. So I think we're starting from scratch from either one, and want to see how the board would like to proceed.
I really liked Marilyn. Marilyn was sharp, on top of stuff, and knew a lot of things. She retired, but she did say to me before she left, that she'd be willing to come back to work for the village, but we'd have to go through, her company.
Is that a different company?
No, that's the one David Stallman works with.
Yeah, they're not. Well, according to them, they're not giving us them. They're gonna give us the gentleman by the name of Vincent, who's been maybe a couple meetings. He's been a couple meetings with Sean, and he's attended a couple meetings with the village board. So you've seen him. He hasn't said much, but he's brand new, so he's got to learn too.
Yeah. Well, these guys that I've worked with on the LWRP, they're pretty professional, pretty knowledgeable. And as a result of doing the LWRP, they're going to have a lot of a sense of what's going on with that property, and and they conducted all those surveys, so they have a pretty good idea of different ideas that have come up. I think that, I don't know who this other Vincent guy is, but I think that I'd certainly be open to using Behan Associates.
So
if we got to get pricing and see, if we're going to pay triple, I think I might change my mind, but I think that they're a good bunch of guys there, and they know their stuff.
Yeah. So what I can do, if the board wants, I can get proposals from both companies, provide it to the board. You guys can review it, take a look at the pricing, maybe meet with the team that's going to be working with the village, and then decide what you want to do. If that sounds like a plan. Yeah.
You think it would be a team, or would they assign one person? The way Clark did.
Well, I think they'll assign one. Behan has been with LWP, as you guys know, at least the people who attended the Elder, they've always had like two people. So I don't know if they tend to try to have at least two people, so that way one's away. The
John Behan and Michael Allen, both quite good.
Correct. Well, and with the other company that we're using right now,
Noah Levine, the guy that he's more of the zoning person, I believe.
Correct. So I just want to give you guys options since we're starting from scratch anyway, and see if you want to change gears and go and talk to two different companies.
Get their proposals so we can see if their pricing is roughly comparable. If we can assess, that, I think that would be one thing to look at before we make a decision.
Is that okay with everybody? Just to get a proposal for both companies, and then if anybody knows anybody else, of course, then I can reach out to that company as well.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, Anthony.
I think Behan at least has a basis with the Indian Point property. They wouldn't be a company starting from scratch over there. That's my
Right.
thoughts. I'm not, let's look at the pricing.
Let's see what the pricing is. Well, they might blow everybody else out of the water. But again, I don't know either one, so I can get you proposals from each.
All right. Does anybody else know of any planners? No? All right. So let's get a few proposals. Let's look at that, and then we can discuss that again too.
Okay, as I was saying, I was planning, trying to plan out my summer, and as you know, a couple of weeks ago, Mayor, you had said that we were going to have some ethics issues, and that you wanted me to recuse myself, and I said I wanted to follow the law and go to the ethics board for a hearing. I was wondering if you had any hearing dates, or if you have the charge specifications, so I could at least prepare a little bit of a defense. Or is there a time frame on this? Or I thought when I had the ethics issue with a prior official, I had written a letter, and then the ethics issue was discontinued, so the county did not have to come up. Right. So I know we don't have a functioning board now, so it would have to go right down to the county, as we had discussed at the last meeting. So I wonder if you had a time frame, or if you had any paperwork or any charges or whatever.
No, we are going to proceed with it, but I do not have a time frame at this current time. But I will of course check with you to see what your vacation schedule is, and then we can go from there.
Well, just have the county send me up a list of meeting dates and times. If you can give me I don't know what their schedule is like, whether
I don't know if it would
get
be
2 weeks notice, or just so that I'd be available to have the documents put together.
Sure, absolutely.
So
Sean, you just plan your week in Tahiti, and
Bora
work around
Bora.
Bora.
Do you have any time frame when any of this might happen? You have a draft that's being reviewed, or?
No, I do not.
Okay.
But I plan on proceeding with it.
All right. And I'm sorry I missed you at the planning board meeting. I remember you had said you were going to come to the planning board meeting and discuss the same issues publicly with the same people that had the same things. I was wondering if there was an issue, or did I misunderstand?
I did have a personal issue,
Okay.
and I am going to be at the July 15th meeting. I plan on doing that. Like I said to you, we discussed your situation in public, and I feel that's appropriate to discuss the other person, Jen's situation in public also. So I will start.
Okay. So July 15th.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I did want to do it, but I had a situation, and I just could not make it to the meeting.
I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand it.
No. That's what my plan was.
Can I backtrack us a second? What was the decision on having a special meeting regarding the IP property and the planners? Are we looking to? Can we pick a meeting date, or do we need to resolve planning?
We can pick a meeting date. It's within the last 2 weeks of July, so we can do a Tuesday evening if you'd like. We could do the 20th. We could do the 27th.
Yeah, Tuesdays are good.
No, you know what? We have a workshop in there too. The 27th is our workshop.
Yeah, so the 13th or the 20th.
Okay.
It's 2 Tuesdays between our board meeting and our workshop.
Okay. Let's, if the 20th is good with everyone.
Okay.
Sure.
That's perfect.
All right. Wonderful.
7:30.
Yeah, 7:30 is good. Usual time, so no one's confused, Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Nick, do you have anything?
No, nothing that we haven't already gone through already.
You have anything?
No, I have nothing.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, they say.
No, it's getting late.
Yes, it is, my friend. Yes, it is. I'd like to, we do need to just go into a quick executive session to discuss personnel. So I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we just have for Marcus to work his magic here.
Teresa, Eileen has raised her hand.